guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to set up a Minecraft server and also how to load the Bukkit module and then plugins for Bukkit to let you really increase what your Minecraft server can do. Pretty much everything I'm going to show here are things that I showed on a previous video, which was the plugins like the permission plugin, the economy, the shop, the locking of chests, the getting points for killing monsters, etc., etc. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to go bring up our web browser and we're going to go to the Minecraft website, and obviously we've got to get the server. So we're going to go to the download page. We're going to scroll down to where it has the multiplayer beta server software, and since we're using Windows here, we're going to grab the Minecraft server for Windows. That gets saved to our disk. If you were using OS X or if you were using Linux, you can grab this one here. But for Windows users, you're going to want to grab this. Alright, so we've got that file. We're going to grab it and put it on our desktop. And we'll go ahead and get rid of that window. Now, I recommend you create a folder and call it whatever you want. I'm just going to call it server. And put your Minecraft in there. Now you can put this anywhere you like on your system. It doesn't have to be on your desktop, but for the purpose of this video, it makes the most sense to have it on the desktop. Alright, so let's go in there, and what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and just run the server. Now I recommend unchecking this, that way every time you run the server you don't get this pop-up. Okay, now you'll see the first time you ever run this, if you have Windows Firewall or some other firewall active, it's going to come up and say, hey, do you want to unblock this or keep it blocked? You've got to unblock this if you want to allow people to connect to your server. Now you can see here the world is being generated. Alright, but I want to note one more thing. If you unblock the Windows Firewall, that allows connections to get to your computer without being blocked by the Windows Firewall. Maybe you have Norton's or McAfee or someone else's firewall software. But in a lot of cases, many of you guys are going to have a Linksys or a Netgear or a D-Link router, and those act as firewalls too. And you're not going to have anybody be able to connect to you from the outside world in unless you do something called port forwarding on your router. And I can show you that feature in a different video, but for now we're going to assume, for the sake of this test or for the sake of this video, that you either have no firewall, Linksys or D-Link, that's blocking you, or you've configured it to do the port forwarding that's needed, or all your people playing are on the local network and aren't actually connecting from outside the internet. So anyway, the server's up and we're ready to go. Now this is just a generic server that comes with Minecraft, so this is not going to give us any of those extra features. So we're going to go ahead and close that down. Now if you look, once we ran that, the world that was just generated was stored in a folder called world, and we have some other files here. Now for the sake of a text editor, I like to use Notepad++. It's free and you can download it. I'm going to have like a link on my website with a bunch of links that go off to all the things I'm using here, be it Notepad++, be it all the plugins for Bukkit and Bukkit itself. So I'll have links that you guys can follow, so you don't have to try to like write all these things down as you see them or try to make note of them. So the first thing we're going to want to do is let's take a look at server properties, and we're going to edit this with Notepad just so we can look at it. And you can see it's got the level name of world, that's the default. If I was to go in and change this and then rerun Minecraft, it would create a whole new world with the name that I put here, and it would create a folder with that same name with that world. So you can see you can have as many worlds as you want. They'll all be in their own folder, and all you have to do is make sure your server properties file has the name of the one you want to use. It's got an option here for the hell world, that's the nether region. If this is true, then you play the entire game in the nether region. If it's false, which is what it is now, you do not have the ability to play in the nether world. The bad thing about multiplayer is portals don't work, so you either play in the main world or you play in the nether region. So spawn monsters true, basically means that monsters will be spawned. If you set this to false, it's kind of like being on peaceful. Online mode is if you want to make your server online and available to other users. Spawn animals is like spawn monsters. If this is false, there'll be no animals in the game. This max players is the maximum number of players that you want to allow to connect. This is something that you might have to tweak if you're trying to allow a lot of people on your server and you don't have the memory on your server or the bandwidth over the internet to handle them. You can turn this down to set it to the amount that's necessary for your system. Server IP, I don't think you really ever need to mess with that. Player versus player true, this allows you to hurt each other. A lot of times I run with this at false, so the girls, when we play, we can't hurt each other, but I turn this on true when we want to do Thunderdome. Server port, you can leave that the way it is. It's the default port that Minecraft uses. And whitelist, I really recommend that you turn this to true. Okay, so I'm going to save that and quit. But let me tell you what the whitelist is here. We can edit this with Notepad. If you go into this whitelist and you type in the names of the people who are going to play on your server, only the people in this whitelist file can log in. So and these are their Minecraft names. So you want to basically put in the names of the players you want to allow in, and that way if somebody gets the IP of your server and you're not aware of them, they won't be able to log in. Alright, so that is that file. Also, there's a file called ops. This is where you put the names of people that are operators on your server. Operators have a little bit more privileges by default. They can teleport people. They can give themselves items by typing the give command, and they can destroy the area around the spawn point, the general area, whereas normal players can't. So I recommend at least you put your name in there, and then if there are people you trust, you can put them in there also. Banned players and banned IPs, I don't really think you need to worry too much about this, especially if you're using the whitelist. This whitelist will allow you to say who can get on your server. These two files allow you to ban certain IPs from connecting to your server and players from connecting, but if you use the whitelist feature, I think it's more simple. Alright, so that's basically how to set up the basic Minecraft server. Now, if you wanted to test this, what you could do is run the server, and you can see the first time we ran it, it had to create the spawn, generate the world, but now it doesn't have to go through all that because it's already been created. But let's say you've got another computer on your network that you want to log into your server with. Well, you need to be able to tell that other computer, what the IP address is of this system. And again, since right now we're focusing on just computers on our local network, let's go to Start Programs Accessories Command Prompt, and let's type IP config. And you can see right here the IP address of this computer is 192.168.0.191. Okay, so basically what you can do is, if you got another computer on your network, load Minecraft, connect to the server by putting in the 192.168.0.191. Now, if you're going to be connecting from outside on the internet, you're going to have to give your real world IP, and which I'll show you that later. And if you're running Minecraft on the same computer as the server, you don't have to worry about that IP at all. You can just type localhost. And again, that's localhost. You type that in, it'll connect to your own system. But obviously that's only good for the computer that's on, or the server and the computer if they're on the same computer. And sometimes it might be advisable to run the server for Minecraft on a separate computer because it does take up a lot of memory, and if you don't have a ton of memory on your computer, you may not be able to run the server and the Minecraft client. Alright, so let's go ahead and just stop the server. Now let's go ahead and put the Bukkit module on. So we're going to go to Google Chrome, and we're going to go to the Bukkit's website, and the easiest way to get Bukkit is to click on their documentation link. And then here you can see on the latest downloads, download Craft Bukkit. And that's what they call the version that we run on the servers, Craft Bukkit. Bukkit is what the developers download if they're going to create their own modules for Bukkit. But basically we want to do Craft Bukkit, so we click it and we've downloaded it. It's a very simple thing to do. Let's put it on our desktop. Real quick, tiny file. And we're going to click this to go into the documentation, but we're going to save that for a minute. Okay, so now what we do is we open up the zip file that we just downloaded, grab these two files and drag them right into our server folder. Okay, so now after we've done that, we got a plugins folder that's got a couple plugins that came with Bukkit, and I don't really like these plugins, so what I like to do is create a folder and just call it disabled and put these plugins in there, and that way they won't become active. Only plugins that are in the main directory here will be loaded. This stuff here won't, so I've kind of disabled those plugins. Now we got to go back to the Craft Bukkit page here, and we need to copy this command to create a batch file. So I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to right click to copy it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to load Notepad, and let's clear that, and let's paste this in. Now I recommend just deleting this line here and coming down here and just getting rid of the bin directory there also, and the file name we downloaded is actually craftbukkit.jar. So I recommend making this change to the file, and let's do a save as, and we're up here in our server directly, and let's call this run, and it's very important that we put a .bat on the end of it because this is a Windows batch file. Now we've saved it, and you can see that Notepad actually realizes now that this is a batch file, and it's kind of highlighting in syntax coloring. Oh, I think we lost our E there. So, alright. So let's go ahead and close that. Now here we have our run batch file. And if we double click that, you'll see that Craft Bukkit loaded. Now the blocking command come up again now because Windows sees Craft Bukkit running and thinks that this is another program that needs internet access. So we want to unblock it also. So here we have our world loaded in our region. You can see when you run it this way, we don't get the GUI that we had before, the graphical user interface, but it works the same way. So now we have Craft Bukkit running, and our world has been loaded, and we're ready to go. So now we have the ability to start adding modules. So let's go ahead and stop this server, and you can stop it by just typing stop, and it's gone. And let's grab a couple modules. So let's grab the permissions module. And now the permissions module, this is used by a lot of the other plugins to determine what features you want to allow your users to do. So let's grab the permissions module, which we just downloaded, and what we'll do is let's go ahead and get that file. If I can actually click on the right thing here, let's get the permissions module and put it here, and let's go into our plugins folder. We'll open up the permissions archive, and let's grab both things and put them in here. Now, as we said before, any plugins that you put inside the plugins folder, Bukkit will automatically load them. So here's the permissions jar file, and here's a folder, and this contains a file that says renameme.yml. And what we have to basically do is we have to rename the rename me part to the name of our world, and in the case of ours it's called world. It's very, very important that you leave the .yml on there and it become the name of the world that your server property file references. Now let's just bring this up with Notepad real quick, and this is a pretty scary file for a lot of people when they look at it, but the most important thing to look at is as we scroll down here you have some different groups. You have a group that's called default, and that is basically all of your people who aren't identified down below in this file in the user section. Anybody who isn't identified becomes a default user. And then this would be the permissions that they get here. Foobar is just kind of like a generic thing. It doesn't give them any real permission. It's kind of like just a generic example. You can also have people that are moderators and have permissions for them. And on the admins, which is what you guys are if you're going to set up your own server, you have permissions to everything. So now if we come down here, we can see who are the different people. So let's just get rid of this person's name. And let's put my name because I want to be the admin. So I'm an admin now. So anybody that logs in with the name Bellboz is an admin. Now I could change this and I could put Lizzie in there. And Lizzie basically, when she logs in, she's a moderator. Really all you have to worry about for the most part is just make sure you are set up as an admin, and then all your other users are going to be just the default group. Okay, so we'll go ahead and just leave that. I mean, honestly, you can take these and just get rid of them if you want. They're not needed. I would just leave them in there and leave these names in here or put in something something to just change it just in case you're worried that there is somebody with those names that's going to come into your system. But we're going to just leave them except for putting ourselves as the admin. Okay, so we saved that. And now if we go ahead and run the permission or the Bukkit system, we'll see permissions is now loaded. So now we have a server running with permissions. So we're going to go ahead and stop that. And let's look at another plugin. Let's look at the iConomy plugin. Now this is that plugin that allows us to have money. So we are going to download it. And then we're going to take it and bring it over here on our desktop. Let's open it up. And here's the jar file. And let's put that in our plugins folder. And then we'll go ahead and go back and run Bukkit, which will start the Minecraft server. And you can see that permissions loaded and iConomy has loaded. And iConomy downloaded the SQLite database that it needs to function for us. Used to be you had to set that up manually, and now it downloaded it for us. So let's just stop this real quick. And let's go ahead, and you can see here that this SQLite was downloaded by the iConomy system. But let's go in here, and you can see now that an iConomy folder was created, and there's some files in here. These two here you don't want to mess with. But let's load up the iConomy configuration file, and here you can see there's some settings. You can change the name of the currency. So if you don't want your money being called coins, you can call it drachmas, whatever you want to come up with. If you got some cool name that you want to use for your world, here you can set the how many gold coins or coins that you want your users to have when they start the game. So let's just say we want to start with 1,000 coins. You can turn logging on. You can set up that if there's interest that players will earn by their money. And I don't recommend playing with the database or any of the things down below. Interest is turned off. You can turn that on. You can tweak these. It's pretty self-explanatory. All we're going to do is just basically give ourselves more money to start. And we're going to save that. And that's pretty much all you have to do for the iConomy system. Now, there are some permissions that are used. There is this messages file here, and this allows you to change the messages that are used on the screen for the system, the iConomy system, but I don't really recommend playing with this unless you know what you're doing. Just leave it at the default. Now, let's go back to the permissions folder. And real quickly, we'll go over to the iConomy page again. And we will scroll down here to the permission. So you can see here, these are permissions that are needed to do certain things. If you want to allow your users to pay money, they need this permission, the iConomy payment permission. So we're going to highlight that and copy it. And it's just this part here, not the description part here, not the dash or and everything after that. So then what we do is we go into our permission file and we scroll down to our default users. And this foobar isn't even valid, so let's go ahead and paste iConomy.payment. That means that your default users now have this permission. So let's go back here. If you want to allow viewers to see who's got the top amount of money, we have to add this permission. So let's copy that. Now let me just tell you one little thing you got to worry about. When you're using Notepad++ or any real good editor, it'll maintain the tab spacing here, but you don't want to use tabs. So if I backspace, you can see it's jumping back tabs. It has to be spaces all the way up to that dash. Then do a space, put a single quote, paste in your permission that you want to give, and a closing single quote. But every time you put a line in, get rid of those tabs. It has to be. And I'm going to put one more in here, and that's the ability to do a money rank. And we'll copy that, and we'll come in here, and I'll paste it in. So just be very careful that this is spaces here and not tabs, otherwise you'll have problems. So we'll save that. So now what we've basically done is we've given our default users the ability to pay, to rank, and to list. Remember that you're an admin and you have all permissions, regardless of if they're set or not. You can do everything. This is just giving your default users the ability to use certain features. Alright, so we've set up the iConomy system now. And we've got the permissions loaded, and we're taking advantage of those permissions. So now let's go take a look at the real shop. This is what I was using to allow us to use a chest and sell items. So let's go ahead and download the latest release. And let's go ahead and take that, drag it over here. Let's minimize our browser. Let's go back to the plugins folder, and let's copy Real Shop in there. We'll back up, and we'll go ahead and run. And we can see the permission system, the iConomy system, and Real Shop has loaded. So let's go ahead and stop this for a second. And we'll go into our plugins folder, and here you can see a Real Shop folder got created. And let's go into the accounts real quick, and I'll let you see there's nothing in here yet because nobody has any accounts. But the main one we want to worry about is this config text file. Here you can say it tells us what language we're in. We're in English. The daily price calculations, you can set, so that prices recalculate daily based off of how much items are being bought or sold. But we really want to make sure we come in here and change this economy plugin to say iConomy. If you want your shop to be able to sell damaged items, set this to true. If you want your shop to be able to infinitely sell and buy items, set these to true instead of false, which I don't recommend. And then only shop for market items only is false. There's a file we'll show in a second that has items listed in it. And if they're not listed in there, if this was set to true, then you wouldn't be able to sell anything that's not in that file. Allow only ops to shop is set to false. That would be only if you want your operators to use this feature. And there's some other stuff in here that you can read about, but it's really not that important. Most important thing is we come in here and we change this to iConomy. Okay, now here is a file called data values text. This basically contains all of the items in the game for the most part, and what items might be needed in order to make those items. Like say here is a signpost. It says that it needs item 280, and if we scroll down here, I don't even see a 280. So not quite sure what that is. But a wooden door requires item 5, and it requires 6 of them. And that's a wooden plank. So basically what this is doing is it's telling the market system every item in the game what it is required to make it. So in the case of a flower, it's a flower. There's nothing else needed. But in the case of a sword, if it's a stone sword, you know you need 2 sticks and a piece of stone. So this lets the market system adjust the values for items based on what items are needed to make it. Obviously a diamond sword would be more valuable than a stone sword because instead of just the sticks, the diamond sword uses a diamond, whereas a stone sword only uses a stone. So this adjusts the value. I don't recommend playing with this unless you really know what you're doing. And then this economy file you don't have to worry about. That's if you're using the Real Shop's built-in economy system. And the market text, this is a file that lists items that can be sold and bought, and it actually shows their value. So you can see, like for grass, you can buy grass from a shop for 100, but you can't sell it. You know, in the case of gold ore, you can buy it from a shop for 300, and if you sell it, you'll only get 270 because you're always selling to make a profit. You can play with this if you want. That's up to you. But that's all you really have to do for the Real Shop is to change that one file. Okay, so that's setting up the Real Shop. Now let's go to the next plugin, and let's do the lockable chest and lockable door and furnaces and all that. And let's go ahead and download that. This is another one that's easy to set up. Let's just download it and put it in your plugins folder, which is what we're in right now. So we'll copy that in. Sometimes when you run this the first time, I've seen it actually crashes, which it just kind of did there. But it's because I believe it's because it has to download all the files it needs, which it just did. So if we stop it and we restart it now, you can see everything is loading cleanly now. So let's go ahead and restop the server. I just wanted to make sure you guys could see that it is working fine. And in here, this is the property files. I don't think we need to edit this file here. Yeah, this one tells you not to touch it. And then here is the properties file. And this, for the most part, I don't think you want to mess with either. This module is pretty straightforward. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and back up. There might be some permissions for this, so let's take a quick look. I don't see any, unless they're hidden. Yeah, I'm not seeing any permissions. Let's just check real quick. Okay, so there are permissions. Alright, so if you want to allow your users to protect an item, you have to give them this permission. So we will copy that text for that permission. We'll go into our permissions file. We'll scroll down to our default users because we want to let them do it. We'll delete those tabs, space out, paste in the command, and we'll save it. So now we've got our economy commands and our chest protection command. Close that, back up. So now we've given our users the ability to do that. So let's go ahead and grab the Citizens plugin. Now this one has permissions, but I don't recommend setting these unless you really want to give your users the abilities to create non-player characters. This is what I use to put Notch in the game, and I'm going to use to put a lot of you guys in our future quests and future games. So we're going to download it, and we're going to copy this over here. Let's go ahead and minimize that. Let's open up the citizens. Here you can see are the files. Let's copy that all in. I don't really think there's a lot of major settings here that we have to do. The one thing that you do want to change is on the first line here, specify whether to use the items list or not. Set that to false unless you care. Basically what that is if you leave that as true, to talk to a non-player character you have to have a certain item in your hand and right click on him with that item. Otherwise he won't talk to you. I like it as false. That way they'll talk to you no matter if you're hitting them with a bare hand or if you're hitting them with a sword, because you're right clicking anyway. And you can see there's other features. Enable NPCs to look at you when you get closer. I like to leave that on. You can play with some of these settings, but like I said, I just recommend changing this to false on the first line, and you're done. So that's all you have to do for the NPC settings. Let's go ahead and just run our server to make sure everything starts. I kind of recommend you, anytime you install a plugin, that you go ahead and run the system to make sure it's working. But if we look here, here's the Citizens plugin. It's loaded, so we're good to go on that. Alright, so now we've got the Death TP Plus plugin. This is that plugin that when you die it sends a message to everybody, and when you get killed, if you're killed by the monster when you die, it tells you how you died, and if you die, when you die, it gives you the ability to teleport back to where you died to get your stuff. So let's go ahead and go to that, and let's find the download link. Let's copy that over here. Let's go into our plugins folder and let's open that zip. And very important too, when you see a download like this, if you don't see the plugin itself, go into the folder to find it. I mean, here you can see, here's the plugin. Once you find the jar file, then copy that and anything else with it into here. Alright, so here we've got the jar file, and here's a folder. There is a config file for this. We'll bring it up real quick. And there's a few things on here. Show death notify means that it tells everybody when somebody dies. It's set to true. Allow people to teleport to their body when they die, after they die. Set to true. This creates a log of all the deaths. Shows streaks when people go on killing or death streaks. Here you can set an item number that requires the user to have this item in their hand before they teleport. So it basically takes the item away from them. Don't really see the value in that myself. If you like the signs on the ground where people die, change it to true. And if you want to take money away from them every time they die, if they use the teleport command, set how many coins you want to take away from them. Down here are all the different messages that can occur when you die by fire, by lava, by a creeper. You can add some stuff in here if you want, or just leave them the way they are. Alright, so that's the death teleport. Now there is a permission for this if you want to allow your users to teleport when they die. So we'll bring this up in Notepad. We'll scroll down here. Get rid of the spaces. Go ahead and put our two little single quotes. Let's go back to the Death TP site here and look for the permissions. So here's the various permissions. I don't really care to let users see the streak, death, or kill command, but I definitely want them to be able to teleport back to their body. If you want to do these other ones, just copy and paste them in. And what we'll do then is we'll go back in here and we'll paste, save that. Alright, and the Death TP plugin has been loaded. And if we want, we can back up, run the server. There's Death TP loading, economy, the locking, the real shop. Everything is loading. Alright, so let's go back here and let's do iMonster. Now this is the one that lets you configure how much money you get when a monster is killed, or even what the monster drops when he dies. So Let's scroll down here and let's download it. Let's put this file right here for now. Go to our plugin folder, put it in there. Let's go ahead and run the system. And we should see iMonster. Right there's iMonster. Now let's stop it, because sometimes plugins require to be run before you can configure their options. Because you notice we only copied iMonster into here, but once we ran the server, iMonster created this file here inside the folder. So let's bring that up with Notepad. So you can see here the first line is already set to true, which means that you're going to use economy, which we want, and we're not going to use these other two economy options. And how many max drops a monster can do, this is set to 2. But the most important thing is you'll see the creeper, skeleton, all these different monsters and animals in the game. But here you can see for a creeper, you can say how many coins he'll drop. So we can say he can drop anywhere from 10 to 200 coins. But also, you can specify items that you might want him to drop. So let's just say we want to, for the sake of this, we'll say we want a creeper to drop a diamond. And the percentage, after the number you put a colon, and then the percentage chance you want for that item to be dropped. So let's say there's a 100% chance that he'll drop a diamond, and we want him to drop 20 diamonds. Now I'm going to highlight this and copy it, and I'm going to go ahead and just put this for a bunch of the monsters, just so when we load the game up, and even for the animals, let's make it so a chicken, a cow, a pig, a sheep, we probably won't see a squid. Okay, so now you wouldn't want to do this for your server because it's crazy to give diamonds away, but I just wanted to show that to you guys. Alright, so now we're set up with that. I don't believe there is any permissions of note when it comes to the iMonster, so I think we're in pretty good shape. It looks like there is an iMonster.user, but I don't really think it's actually needed for anything, so I wouldn't even worry about that. Alright, so the last two modules we're going to do together because they're very quick: plug set spawn and plug warp. These allow you to set a new spawn point and allow your users to type /spawn to go to it, and also the warp command allows you to set warp points. So I download the version that lets the users do a /spawn or the warp command, but only the operators can set the spawn point and set warp points. So let's download these, and then let's go to plug warp. These are by the same author, so they are almost identical in setup. And let's download that one. Let's go ahead and take these two, put them here, and let's back up to our plugin folder and drop these guys in there. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and run our server. You can see that everything's loaded. There's the set spawn and the warp, and we've loaded a ton of modules and we haven't got any errors. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to leave the server running here in my VirtualBox, and I'm going to stop the recording from here, and I'm going to switch over to recording Minecraft, the actual client, and we're going to try to connect to this world and see if everything works. So let's have our fingers crossed and hope everything goes good. Alright, so we're in Minecraft and we're going to connect to our server. So you can see we're loaded. Now the world generates a little slow. It's probably because the server I'm running is in a VirtualBox, so it's not actually running on its own computer. It's, you know, a virtual system. Alright, so some of our commands. Let's see if the money system is working. Type /money. And there we go. And we have 1,000 coins, as you saw we configured in the system. Now, I don't have a lot of items here, so I'm going to give myself a chest. And we'll drop that on the ground. So, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to see if we can set up a shop. Our shop, create. Alright, so now you can see I have a shop. And you can follow my other videos if you want to learn how to actually work with the shops. Alright, let's go ahead and give ourselves another chest. And let's try the locking chest. And I think it's private. And now you can see we have a protected chest. Let's go ahead and give ourselves an awesome weapon. We'll just go for an iron sword. And let's see if we can see anything around here to kill. Alright, here's some cows. Now remember, we set it up to give us some goodies. He didn't drop anything, and there we go. So you can see here, lots of stuff dropped. I think the other guy actually dropped stuff too. I might have got the percentage backwards. So the economy system's working and the monster drop is working. And we'll check my percentage versus quantity. I may have it saying that there's a 100% chance to, I wanted a 100% chance to drop 40 or whatever it might have been, but I might have had it switched it around and got it set to that it's a 40% chance to drop 100. Because right now you can see 64 and 36 is 100. So I think I got the two numbers backwards, but that's no big deal. Alright, so we've got that done. Let's see about the spawn command. If I type spawn, it should take me to the current spawn point. And this is where we first started the game. But what I can do now is I can come around here and I can say set spawn. Now this is the new spawn point. So if I say spawn, you can see it takes me here instead of down there. I can also set up warp points. Now the reason you might want to use that spawn command is maybe you want to set a spawn point in a better location. Maybe it's setting you real close to where monsters generally are, or water or something, or you just want to set up a point. Now for the warp command, I can type set warp and I can say let's call this hill because I'm up on top of a hill. So now my users, if I want to tell them this, can say warp hill, and they're on top of the hill here. So you can see all that's working very, very well. So far every module that we've loaded has worked. We've checked permissions, we've checked economy, the shop, the locking. Let's go ahead and try the non-player characters. So let's say citizens help. So it's NPC, create, notch, hi there, your server is cool. And as you can see, there's Notch. And if we walk up and right click on him, Notch says, hi there, your server is cool. So that shows all of those commands. Let's go out and try to find some baddies. Something that'll kill us, because I want to go ahead and actually die. There's a creeper. Alright, let's let this skeleton kill us. Alright, and you can see here a skeleton just got a headshot on Belboz. So we're going to respawn, and we can type death TP, and here we got our stuff back. There's the sign. And then of course the skeleton just dropped a bunch of diamonds. Alright, so the death TP is working. You saw that the eye monster was working because we were getting points for killing monsters, and obviously getting stuff for dropping when we killed the cows and different animals, the pigs. The set spawn commands and the warp commands are all working. So that's basically all the plugins. And what I'm going to do now is we're going to jump back real quick, check that one permissions file just to see if I think I had it backwards when it came to quantity and percentage, and we'll do a few little wrap-ups. Alright, so we're back. Let's go ahead and bring up the properties file for the eye monster. So we can see here on the example, gives a 1% chance to drop. Okay, so it's here, it gives a 1 in 100 chance to drop 2 diamonds. So it's item, quantity, percentage. So I did item, and instead of my quantity being 20, I put it as 100, and my percentage was 20% instead of 100. So I had the 20 and 100 backwards. So just remember, if you want to put anything in, put it in the item number, the quantity you want dropped, and the percentage chance that you want dropped. And you can also do multiple things. You can put a semicolon then, and you can say I want them to drop a sword, and I want 1 sword dropped, and I want a 10% chance. Actually, got to make sure those are colons there. 1 sword, 10% chance. So you can do that also. And adjust the money the way you see fit. I like to give creepers and skeletons to be worth the most, especially the creeper, then the skeleton. Zombies and spiders about the same. And I don't honestly think people should get money for killing the animals. I think it's kind of pointless. It's up to you on that. I would probably put all those things at 0 because who needs money for killing animals? But that's up to you. Alright, now the last thing I want to show you is, we've basically done all these modules. The only module I didn't do was Monster Hunt. I can show you guys about that, but I think now that you've learned how all of this works, I think you got a good idea how to configure permissions, how to install plugins, tweak any settings, and how to test them. But the last thing that I want to show you is how to actually get your real world IP to give to your friends or whatever, or people you want to have connect to your server. Now what I'm going to do is, I don't want you guys to see what my IP is, so we're going to go to a anonymous browsing site, and you don't have to do it this way, but I recommend you go to ipchicken.com, and you don't want to do it through an anonymous browser. You want to go directly to ipchicken.com yourself. There's a lot of websites that will tell you what your real IP is, but I like ipchicken, and there's chickens in Minecraft, so I think it's a perfect fit. So if we go there, you'll see that ipchicken, once you go to the website and you get this ad that pops up right here, that is your IP address, and you can see it shows it as being from their website and not my actual IP, but I'm keeping my IP private so that you guys don't all start trying to come in and connect to my server. But this IP number you see here, copy that and send that to all your friends or people who you want to connect to your server. And remember, that IP is very, very different oops, very, very different than the internal IP, the 192.168.0. This is a completely different IP. That's my IP address on the internet. This is my IP address on my local network. Now, there could be cases where these two numbers are the same. If you have a cable modem or a DSL modem and it plugs directly into your computer, you have no D-Link or Linksys router, there is a chance that you might already have a real IP. And all you had to do was the setting previously where I showed you guys how to unblock the ports on your Windows firewall. That may be all you needed to do if both these numbers match up. If they are different, then this is the IP to use for your internal users on your local network. This is the IP to use for your users coming from the outside on the internet to you. So basically, there you go, guys. I mean, that's the server, and we ran through how to set up a lot of stuff in the most basic fashion possible. Hopefully that makes sense. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop me a line. If you see something else you want to have done, or if you want more detail on something, let me know. Make sure you send it to me as a private message, because I have a lot of trouble at times keeping track of all the comments, especially now that the Yogscast has gave us a boost in users. We're getting more comments than we ever have. So private messages are your best chance to get to me. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Talk to you later.